everybody else off. For our offense, and I think this could end up being one of those weird Saturday wild card games that ends up 40-35, because Will Fuller is expected to play, Kenny Stills is expected to play, Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson are both looking a lot better from some earlier season dings, and of course we have DeAndre Hopkins and Deshaun Watson. So, your guys' secondary is better than the Texans, but the Texans have gone up against some pretty decent secondaries this year and have come away with some success. Hopefully O'Brien doesn't rely too much on the run game, which is kind of what his go-to is. And hopefully Laramie Tunsil can actually play well. I looked it up. He's the 27th ranked left tackle this year, which for the Texans is a huge improvement. But, he's still just a borderline starter, and, we gave up quite a bit for him. So that's going to be the story of the year there.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. When we get into, Texans offense versus Bills defense, I think it's really going to come down to, the defensive back play of the Bills and how they step up, because obviously DeAndre Hopkins may be the most talented wide receiver in the league. When you look at just from a pure talent perspective, Trey White's I love Trey White. I think he's he's a top 5 cornerback. He's going to have his hands full, no doubt. But, on top of that, you look at, Will Fuller is practicing this week, so you figure he's probably a go. Kenny Stills has torched the Bills when he used to play with Miami. Now, hurting Buffalo is their normal starting cornerback, Levi Wallace, hurt himself in the meaningless football game against the Jets last week. So he's dinged up, but he did practice today, so I do expect he's going to play. I don't think he's going to start. Do you want to know who I think is going to start opposite Trey White at cornerback for the Bills this week? Kevin Johnson revenge game.
I mean, he has hosed the Texans a lot in the past. What's one more game?
Yeah, right. I do think that he's going to start. There hasn't been a big drop off from Levi Wallace to him when he has gotten in the game. He's played competent for the Bills, so I'm not upset about it. But Will Fuller is when healthy is a great number 2. Stills is a fantastic 3 as well. Houston's got some legit weapons. You go to the backfield. If you look at just paper, the Bills are the 10th ranked run defense. Sounds like that's pretty good. But over the second half of the year, once Harrison Phillips tore his ACL, they've had trouble stopping the run. So I do worry a little bit about Carlos Hyde, but I'm more concerned about a player like Duke Johnson, who's more shifty. That's the type of player that tends to give the Bills a little bit more issues. If they pick up on that and tend to feature him a little bit more, I know from the Texans games I've seen, it seems like they feature Hyde maybe a little bit more than Duke, but I think Duke he's the exact type of player that can hurt the Bills. So I could definitely see Houston scoring. The Bills average, I think they give up an average of about 16 points a game. I think that the Houston Texans could definitely score more than that, coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be it should be a fun one, should be entertaining. There's always one kind of oddball wild card game, as I mentioned. I think that is the Texans' sweet spot in life. They get to play that odd wild card game. So, I mean, that basically breaks it down. I brought up J.J. Watt as a potential negative X factor. Outside of that, I was really hoping Kenny Stills, as you mentioned, he's got a lot of success against Buffalo. I hope he makes it back from his knee issue, because that was going to be the other one, just because, DeAndre Hopkins is always going to get covered, because I would guarantee you that any coaching staff says, well, yeah, I mean, we're going to outthink ourselves and do one-on-one coverage with DeAndre Hopkins and make sure that he beats us. Like that's not a job security statement right there. So I expect him to get blanketed and basically say, if a 80% or 70% Will Fuller and a 90% Kenny Stills beat us, well, that's probably that's probably on our offense to have not put up enough points.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about X factor for the Bills, I think this one's a little bit outside of the box, but I go back to week 4 of the Houston Texans. You guys played the Carolina Panthers and really kind of gave Deshaun Watson some fits. Now, why do I bring that up? Is because the coach at the time for the Carolina Panthers, Ron Rivera, he was the mentor to Coach McDermott of the Bills. He was the defensive coordinator in Carolina for, I believe, 6 or 7 years, as you know. If he's able, I'm sure he's kind of devouring all that tape, all that info. I guarantee you that he's chatted with Ron Rivera multiple times this week about that particular game. What he learns from that, what he's able to use from that and be successful with it, I think is, if he's able to do a lot of that stuff, I think it's going to really help the Bills' cause. But, if he's not able to and the Texans are able to get off hot, which they can do, and they can put up big points on anybody, I think, if that happens, it's going to be kind of a long day for the Bills.
Yeah, and I mean, Ron Rivera is a great example of a guy who can get some sweet consulting money between gigs right now, right? So, all right, man. Well, I think that pretty much breaks it down. The only thing we have left to do is put up a score. As of right now, it's basically a pick'em game. It's 2.5 points in the Texans' favor. So they're saying on a neutral field this is a dead heat, which it definitely seems that way. Of all the playoff teams, I'm sure that any wildcard team would have much preferred to go to Houston as opposed to any of the other wildcard destinations this week. So, Buffalo Rob, who you got and what score you got?
You know what? I don't tend to pick the Bills in spots like this, probably because of our rich history of not being a good professional NFL football team. But I think it's time to go win a road playoff game. The Bills are 6-2 on the road. I don't think the Bills have more talent than Houston by any stretch. I think Houston's the more talented team. I think we could both agree on that. But the one thing I do think is I think Sean McDermott is a better coach than B.O.B. And I think that, something like that is going to be kind of how it comes down to, because I think it is going to be a close game. I think the coaching's going to matter. So I got to go with the Bills on this one. I'm going to say 26-23.
All right. Well, I mean, I hate to agree too much, but, Sean McDermott, definitely a better head coach than Knob, probably a better GM than Knob. And so, it seems like every team in Texas has this curse of more talent than their coach knows what to do with. Rest in peace, Jason Garrett, maybe. So, I'm going to have to go with the homer pick, though. I do like that score that you put out about the 26-23. I'm going to go a little bit higher. I think a higher scoring game is going to favor the Texans just because, at that point, Deshaun Watson's one play away from changing the game, and that's a good spot to be, I think. So I'm going to go 31-27 Texans on Saturday.
All right, guys. Well, we'll throw it back to Pod and the rest of the gang. Hopefully, everybody has a good weekend, except for, unfortunately, you, Rob. But every other weekend, I wish you a good one. Fair enough, man. That's a good one.
All righty.
In a dome, how much can you alter the temperature and all the rest of it in a dome? Can you do that, or is it just too big?
I believe there are rules as to how they're supposed to do that, even though there is there's a great rumor, never been proven, that one of the famed Patriot Colt battles that happened at Ford Field, or happened at the field house, whatever it is that they call it these days. The Patriots were dealing with the silent killer, and the Colts jacked up the heat in the dome so that the Patriots tired out that much quicker.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
Oh, I 100% believe that.
Of course you would.
Anyway.
So clearly your video guys weren't filming the thermostat on the wall.
No, not on that. Not on that particular day. So there you go. There was Rob and there was James, not Eagles James, that's Texans James, breaking down the game. Sorry about the audio quality there. Rob apparently was driving and didn't think about turning his microphone off while recording. Buffalo has clinched a playoff berth for the second time in the past 3 seasons. Houston captured the AFC South Division title for a second consecutive season, 4th time in the past 5 years. For the 4th time in franchise history, Houston has won at least 10 games. That's dating back to 2002. Houston head coach Bill O'Brien joined Andy Reid, Mike Tomlin, and John Harbaugh, by the way, the coach of the year this year, as the only active head coaches with 5 winning seasons over the first 6 years. O'Brien has guided the Texans to 4 AFC South titles in those 6 years, which is why James was led to say that he is the new Marvin Lewis. Buffalo head coach Sean McDermott, in his 3rd season as a head coach, has led the Bills to the playoffs for a second time. This is an intriguing matchup to me, quite honestly. While the Bills' offense isn't as dynamic as the Texans, the Bills' defense is really that much better than Houston, especially statistically. I don't care about J.J. Watt coming back from his torn pec a little bit earlier than people expected. I don't expect him to be that efficient. Well, I should say I do expect them to be very efficient with J.J. Watt, and I don't expect to see him being a big deal on the particular field. And actually, I would 100% expect to see him rip his pec again if he does make a big play. But the defenses are what I see as the difference in this matchup, and I'm going to take the Bills as my Monty special.
Adam and Eve on a raft, a cup of muck, and an upset special.
What do you think, Neil?
I don't know. What's a Monty special? Is that like when you take all your clothes off?
Oh, boy. No.
Is that a full Monty special?
No.
New Year, same Neil.
Yep, it totally is.
In terms of this game, gentlemen, I use that term very loosely. The Bills, for me, are the more consistent team. And you watch the Texans, and some weeks they look fantastic. Other weeks they look absolutely bottom feeders in the league. So just in terms of that alone, although I think they're probably quite equally matched, I think the consistent Buffalo Bills will come out on top. And we all know defense wins championships, and with TENvsNE White on Hopkins, I'm kind of wondering how the Texans are going to score a lot of points in this game. And I think the Bills will just eke out a close one here.
Well, James, your name counterpart mentioned that Will Fuller is expected to play in this game. What is the injury report?
Will Fuller, with that inner thigh injury going on, was limited in practice on Wednesday. So I think a lot of people are probably waiting to see what happens on Saturday leading up to game time, because it may come down to a last-minute decision whether he actually plays or not. Kenny Stills is also limited in practice with a knee injury. Jordan Thomas, a tight end, has an illness, so he didn't participate in practice on Wednesday. Laramie Tunsil is nursing an ankle. And cornerbacks Bradley Roby and Jonathan Joseph both have hamstring injuries. So, offensively, this pretty much will fall on the Houston offense. I think that's the one unit that's going to dictate the outcome of this game more than any other unit on the field. If they can put up points against Buffalo's defense, they'll win. And if not, they'll pretty much be staying in Houston and not traveling next week.
In week 1 of the season, we ranked the Houston Texans 13th. They finished the season ranked number 9. So we're pretty close on them. The Buffalo Bills come to us as a huge surprise, as we had them ranked at the beginning of the season at 22, and they finish at 8. The Bills, Rob will tell us, Neil, that the Bills were always meant to be here, although he has also said they appear to be a year too soon. Well,
I think Rob's absolutely right. I mean, Rob's wrong most of the time, but on that occasion, he's quite right. The Bills are, I think next year we'll see a better Bills, because I think as far as the defense is concerned, that's a pretty solid, good-looking unit that can probably run for a few years, whereas the offense, I think, is still a bit of a work in progress. They need wide receiver help. And maybe a little bit of help on the offensive line. But, I guess, Jay, just going back to this game, my concern would be with the Houston Texans defense, which I don't think is particularly standout at all in any department. Watt coming back, I mean, that's not going to, I can't see that making a huge impact. He had 4 sacks in the 8 games he played this year. That's not, it's not earth-shattering stuff. I know they signed, Whitney Merciless, is that what he's called? Didn't he sign a new contract this week, sorry? He's a player that can still play, but that defense, the secondary, I don't like it.